Hi, and welcome to a new episode of the Social Skills and Conversation Strategies Training Series. My name's Richard Gray, and I'm happy to have you along, whether you're watching me directly on the live stream or you're listening to me on the podcast. So, today we're discussing introductions and how to do them really well. This is not introducing ourselves, this is a whole different topic. How to introduce and remember the other person's name when they introduce themselves. We'll save that for another day. But today we're talking about introducing two different people to each other. And when you're in these situations, it's very easy, especially if you're naturally a quiet person, you're shy or you have a certain amount of anxiety. It's easy to develop that tunnel vision and just give the basic information like, Katie, this is my friend John. John, this is Katie. Now you've made an introduction, but you've just given the basic names for information and nothing else. You've given them nothing to grab hold on, nothing to build a conversation with each other with. So, what we're going to discuss is 5 ways that you can just do this better. Just do it like a warm human being. And I'm not saying that you're not those things. I'm just saying that it's easy to forget and get trapped in your own mind when the spotlight is on you and just not know how to do it well. Even just in a normal conversation, you might be the quiet one. It's the 80-20 principle. Maybe you're doing the 20% of the conversation and the other person is doing the 80%. That might be your default setting at this moment in time, and maybe it's the same with introductions. So, what I'm saying in this episode is that we need to flip that on its head. Now, I don't say this lightly because I've always been an avid reader or listener of personal development books and social skills books. I've listened or read hundreds and hundreds by now over the years. And one thing that always frustrated me was the amount of padding, the amount of filler in these books. Now, the information that you want from these books that you bought them for are so often buried in so much padding that sometimes you just even lose interest in the book. And the giving this padding really mainly to make the books look bigger, to inflate them and make them look more valuable than they are, that there's more meat to it than there actually is. Meanwhile, you've got to wade through all the padding to find the information that you're looking for. And this is what we call the 80-20 principle. 20% of the valuable information, 80% padding. Now, some anecdotes are good, of course. They help you to understand a point that's been taught. It creates a visual and helps you to understand the learning point. It's an analogy, but when it turns into story after story, then it becomes filler. And this is the 80% principle. So, in an introduction, maybe you're the one that's given the 20%, and we want to turn that on its head. And now we want the 80%. We want the extra information in the introduction to make it real, make it warm, and make it human. Particularly if we've got the time to do so, if there's no time pressure. So 5 ways we can do that. Number 1, introduce with a funny story or a funny anecdote. So, for example, Katie, this is my friend John. John, this is Katie. John once got himself locked out of his hotel room in the middle of the night with no clothes on. Now, if you want to know how he got himself into that situation or got himself out of that situation, you're going to have to ask John. So, you've introduced an anecdote here, but you've actually left it on a cliffhanger, which is even better because now they can explore that anecdote and they can break the ice over that anecdote later on once you've drifted away or whatever is appropriate for the situation. So you can give the full anecdote, or if you can find a way to do so, leave it on a cliffhanger. So that's number 1. Number 2, introduce with a funny fact. So we're bringing it in a little bit. If you don't have a full-blown anecdote, maybe you've got a funny fact. So, for example, John, this is Katie. Katie, this is John. John, Katie once ran the London Marathon in a big bear outfit or the hind end of a donkey because she was running for charity. Of course, it doesn't have to be the London Marathon. It could be anywhere in the world. So, funny fact. Could be anything, of course. Chances are you're doing the introduction, so you know these people, so you might know something funny about them. Katie might be able to put her fist in her mouth. You might have this little interesting piece of information tucked in your mind, so use it in the introduction. And this helps to facilitate the small talk between these two people and helps them to develop instead of you just giving them nothing and making them do the hard work of develop their own conversation. So, number 3, introduce with a funny commonality. So instead of introducing with a fact or a story about Katie or about John, if you have the information and you know that they have something in common, use it in the introduction. For example, Katie, this is John. John, this is Katie. Katie might be the only other person in the entire world that likes to put Marmite on her cornflakes for breakfast. Funny commonality. Number 4. Number 3, 2, and 1, we've made it about these two people that we're introducing. Now, number 4, bring it home. Make yourself the butt of the joke if you've got a way of doing this. For example, Katie, this is John. John, this is Katie. John is my very good friend. However, I'm reviewing this friendship because John has now consecutively beat me 20 times in a row on the squash court. So you're making yourself the butt of the joke here. Now, you're not making it so that people are laughing at you, but with you, and you're making yourself a warm and genuine person by being able to laugh at yourself, and this makes it a lot easier for other people to relate to you and feel warmth and connection with you. You're not, as sometimes happens if you're a shy person, you make yourself aloof and create that impression, however unintentional it might be. Sometimes people form the opinion that you're aloof or you're a little bit above them, or that's how you feel about them. And it makes it harder for them to connect with you or want to develop longer term friendships with you. And that might be happening without you even realizing it. And it's a natural thing that might happen if you're shy and you're holding back because you're worried about being judged. But in fact, by holding back, you're forcing them to judge you in a different way anyway. So bring it back in. If you can introduce yourself by making yourself the butt of the joke, you're dispelling anything like that, and you're making yourself human, and you're showing that you have the ability to laugh at yourself, and so you're not only facilitating a great introduction, but you're also making yourself look good in the process. So number 5. So introduce with a straight fact. You might not be in a scenario where you can introduce with something funny, something inappropriate maybe. You might be in a work context or at a networking seminar, and you've not reached that point where you're familiar enough with someone else to be able to introduce a funny fact or anecdote. So you need to keep it a little bit straight. So let's say you're in a work context. John, this is Katie. Katie, this is John. John heads up the accounting department. John, Katie just introduced the new Starlight project that everyone's now beginning to be introduced to and to start working on. Or John, Katie is responsible for the new mini fridge that's in the common area. So you see, you're introducing facts instead of something that's funny. So that's 5 ways of doing this. It's not about just, John, this is Katie, Katie, this is John. This is introducing a life raft or extra material around the core introduction. Number 1, introduce with an anecdote, a funny story or anecdote. Number 2, a funny fact. Number 3, a funny commonality. Number 4, make yourself the butt of the joke. And number 5, a straightforward injection of facts into the introduction. So that's it for this live stream. 5 different ways to facilitate a good introduction and help the other people to make the connection with each other. So I hope to see you on a new live stream in a few days' time or next week, or I hope to be joining you in your car or on your train journey to work, wherever you're listening to me, if it's on the podcast. I always enjoy that. So bye for now, and look forward to your company again